Time for chapter 9, but first a quick recap of 8. So, chapter 8 was sad. I don't know if you felt that when you were listening to it also, but that's not how any of us wanted that to end. So we found out that Peter was killed during his attempt to escape to the west. And when Fritz doesn't come home that night, Mama and Goethe are so worried that they go to his job site. So Goethe helped Mama connect with the idea that Fritz knew about Peter's escape plan. So then they learned that Fritz was taken in for questioning by the Stasi. When they get home, they're so shocked and upset. Mama goes to Herr Kraus's for advice, and Goethe discovers that Fritz's room was destroyed by the Stasi while they were out. And that means the Stasi's been in their home. All right, chapter 9. A cold rain was falling early the next morning, making it hard to leave my bed. It didn't help that I had barely slept, and whatever sleep I got was filled with nightmares about Fritz. When I finally did drag myself into the front room, I was surprised to see him seated closely beside Mama on the couch. He looked exhausted and had a dark bruise on his cheek where someone must have hit him. From what I'd heard about the Stasi's brutal methods of questioning, he was lucky if that's all they had done. Mama and Fritz were sitting in silence, and at first neither said anything to me when I walked in. I called his name and ran toward him, but he put a finger to his lips to quiet me and shook his head in warning. "Oh, good, you're awake, Goethe," Mother spoke deliberately, and her words were far too cheerful to fit the situation. Deliberately means like really on purpose, like she's saying it in a way that's very she's really thinking about what she's saying. She's not talking naturally. "We should have a nice breakfast to celebrate Fritz coming home." Celebrate his coming home? The Stasi had arrested him and obviously questioned him by force. Maybe we were grateful, but to call this a celebration sounded like a word they would want us to use. Maybe it is a word they would want them to use. Are they kind of speaking right now, like they're being listened to? To hear it from my mother's mouth felt strained and unnatural. It's a cold morning. Fritz wasn't quite as cheery as Mama had sounded, but his tone also didn't match his bruise or the heavy bags under his eyes. "Maybe I'll build us a fire while you cook. Help me with it, Goethe." Anna's apartment was newer than ours and had central heating, which was considered a great luxury. So something like very comfortable, a luxury. I envied her every winter when we had to collect wood to burn for our heat, which never reached all the way into my small bedroom. That's like another way of saying that she was jealous of her, envy. But except for the rain, I didn't think this morning was particularly cold. We wouldn't normally use that valuable wood to warm an apartment we'd all be leaving for the day, which meant something more was going on. Goethe is so clever and observant. She always knows when something's not right. Fritz stacked a few sticks of wood in our fireplace and grabbed a handful of papers to use as kindling. He picked up the first paper and I saw his handwriting on it, which said, "Be careful what you say. The apartment is bugged." That means that there's microphones all inside their apartment, and I think you know who put them there. How would it feel to be living in this situation? Bugged? 1,000 questions instantly leapt into my mind. Where were the microphones? How long had they been here? Who was listening to them? I knew I'd read it because my eyes were wide with fear. Then he crumpled up the paper and stuffed it into the middle of the wood stack. The next paper had already been written out for Mama. It said, "The Stasi knew about a private conversation between me and Goethe the other night. They listened to every word we say in here." My mouth went dry. I remembered listening to the Beatles, and I was sure we had complained about the GDR, because we usually did it at night. That same conversation in Fritz's bedroom was where I told Mama the details about seeing Dominic. She had come in unexpectedly, cutting off our conversation about Peter. Fritz said Peter had told no one else about his escape, and Fritz had told nobody about it but me. We were the reason they had caught him, the reason he was killed. Tears filled my eyes and I shook my head, horrified at what all of this meant. But Fritz had a paper for that too. He rummaged through a few in his stack until he found one that said, "We didn't know, but we do now and will be more careful." We must sound happy. We'd gone too long without speaking, and Fritz called out, Goethe and I will have this fire going soon. Then I'll shower and we can get to school. Maybe since Anna won't be at school today, I can walk Goethe there. That's a good idea, Mama said. Although we'll both be at work after school, Goethe, I expect you to come straight home today. Yes, Mama. I croaked the words out, and it felt as though I was speaking them directly into a microphone, which I suppose I was. Everything around me felt forced, and I didn't see how Mama and Fritz were just carrying on like normal. No, it wasn't normal. We never talked like this. Mama didn't make celebratory meals, and we wouldn't have celebrated his release from the Stasi anyway, and Fritz never walked me to school, whether Anna was with me or not. But there we were an hour later, with Fritz walking beside me within throwing distance of the wall. I used to think this was the last place we could talk freely, but now it seemed like the only place. Beneath a shared umbrella, our conversation was as private as it could possibly be. Still, we kept our voices low. I heard about Peter's death yesterday while at school, Fritz said. A friend told me the Stasi was interviewing his parents, and that they might be arrested too. For what crime? I asked. Peter tried to escape, not them. The Stasi view escape on the same level as treason. Treason means betraying your government. So they'll embarrass and shame Peter's family now. They'll have to work extra hard to prove their loyalty to the state. An older couple was passing by us, so Fritz and I fell silent. When we were alone again, Fritz said, When I heard about Peter's death, I knew the only thing I could do was keep my head down and hope nobody remembered that we were friends. I got through the end of school, but Stasi officers were waiting for me the moment I arrived at work. They said it was only for a few questions, but I knew otherwise. What did they do to you? Fritz lowered his head. Clearly, he didn't want to answer that question, not even for me. By then, we were passing the platform where I had seen Dominic and Papa yesterday, but they weren't there this time. I had been so sure they would come. After all, if Papa was trying to send me a message, then why wouldn't he be here? Especially today of all days. Maybe it was for the best. Even from the distance between us, Papa might have been able to see the dark bruise under Fritz's eye. It would worry him. There's something more I have to tell you, Fritz said, and Mother doesn't know about this part, so don't say a word to her about it. I won't. It wasn't the first secret we'd kept from her. They showed me a huge file they're still keeping on Father. Before he left, the Stasi documented everything about him, where he went after work, who his friends were, even what newspapers he brought back from the West when he visited there. They never found anything serious he had done, but were sure it was just a matter of time before they had a reason to arrest him. This wasn't a surprise. Papa had told me the same thing himself, and we'd had the visits from Stasi agents to our apartment. Papa knew he was being tracked because of his part in the uprising, and because he continued to speak to others who wanted more uprisings in the future. But he never committed any crimes or incited anyone to violence. Papa wasn't a violent man, just a thoughtful one. Incited means like starting something, getting other people to get on board with something, and it usually is related to violence, so inciting violence. Fritz continued. Then they showed me another file, one with my name on it. I stopped walking to stare at him. Why? What have you done? Nothing, or at least I didn't think I had. But they know Papa is in the West now, and so they're watching to see if he contacts me or if his friends do. Maybe one day I'll happen to bump into someone who used to know him. If anyone even asks about Father, someone is bound to hear it, and then that report will go into my file. Well, if you haven't done anything wrong, then they can make your file as big as they want. If you obey all the rules, everything will be fine, right? I looked over, hoping to see him agree with me. Isn't that right, Fritz? But he shook his head and lowered his voice to almost a whisper. They told me what the file means. I've been branded a potential enemy of the state. It doesn't matter to them if I've done anything wrong. They just figure I will one day. With that file, I won't be able to go to university or to get a good job. By the end of June, I'll be old enough for the military, and before they put a gun in my hand, that file means I'll get special training until they're sure I believe the way they do. Once I wear their uniform, I'll get the most dangerous assignments, the ones few people survive. That file means I have no chance in life, none. They've already determined that I will fail. All because of Papa, I asked? None of that's your fault. Goethe has a really strong sense of what's fair and what's unfair, doesn't she? I'm not blaming him, Fritz said. I smuggled in that Beatles record and that banana on your birthday and other stuff you don't know about. Nothing bad, but nothing I'd want to get caught with either. They must have heard me complain about the government every night on their microphones, and I've never made it any secret that I don't want to join the military. My file might have started because of Father, but I'm the one who's been filling it. Well, I won't let you fail, I said stubbornly. If you can't get a job, then you'll live with me. If they brainwash you, then I'll talk you out of it when you come home. Whatever they do to you, Mama and I will be there to help. Brainwash is like exactly what it sounds, like you're washing your brain of everything you already think to make you think something else. Fritz rubbed the top of my head with his hand. Usually I hated that, but not this time. It was his way of showing affection, and I wanted that comfort from him now. Then he sighed and said, "You don't understand how bad it is, Goethe. They have a file on you, too." All right. Think back on this chapter. What did Fritz realize after being questioned by the Stasi? And why is this significant? Okay, see you next time.